So welcome everybody. We are discussing on the subject of exam or life. Just day before yesterday, there was an article in the Times of India newspaper about, this year about 14 students committing suicide. With the quota, it's not about quota, but the kind of education anxiety children take and decide to end their life. Now, this is the number of people who committed suicide. What to speak of those who are going through limitless anxiety, right? So therefore, time to time, it is important for people to question their own decisions about their education and their children's education. Where are we taking them? I remember reading the statistics in one of the talk. In India, in 2016 and before, about 47 million children dropped from being in the school. One may say, okay, that is an Indian number because children are, that is a problem. Exactly against that in America, every year about 1.2 million students, that's about 12 lakh students drop out from the school. That is about a student every 26th second, or 7,000 students per day. About 25% of the high school freshmen fail to graduate from high school on time. 25%. Right? So naturally the question is raised, why this happens? Again, the statistics says they give 6 reasons. First is the expensive tuition fee. Now, this is one of the greatest tragedy for human existence since the modern education came into being. In the Mahabharata, Srila Vyasadeva explains one of the symbol of Kali Yuga, the modern. How do you know what is Kali Yuga? You define Kali Yuga not based upon description in the scripture alone. You define Kali Yuga based upon the activities what are happening. So if somebody, even 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, they would say, okay, what is happening? He said, education was never sold. You couldn't purchase education. Right? You can't go and tell, I want to buy this degree. You couldn't do that. So now the first reason is expensive tuition fee. It is not based upon my passion. It is based upon my financial capacity also. That is the first thing. Second reason, it is explained, just not prepared academically. Right? Somebody mentioned that, what does the society look for? Society looks for consensus. Consensus. सब लोग मेडिकल जाओ, सब लोग इंजीनियर जाओ. So when the education is connected to group, I'll get 70 students to join, then it becomes based upon consensus. It is a education based upon narrative building. But education was always driven by an individual. I want to study based upon my passion. Therefore, such kind of preparation, which is not the cup of the tea for everybody. There are some people who are made for this kind of education. There are most people who are not made for this education system. Therefore, they decide to drop out. I can't handle this. Either they drop out physically or they drop out emotionally. Some people handle that dropping out and some people cannot handle that dropping out. Third reason, unhappy with the college, right? Now, even those who are studying in some of the best universities in America, or in a European university, or in some of the best universities in India also, there is inherent feeling of unfulfillment. I don't feel I need to be here, right? Unhappy with the college. Again, some people actually move out of the college, and some people actually get stuck within the college while not being in the college in the spirit. Like the marriages which are dysfunctional, but you just stay in that marriage, right? People joining certain institutions, right, like college, spiritual education, they're unhappy, they can't come out and they can't stay there, so unhappy. The fourth is the most important, is discouraging environment, bullying. And the entire environment is made in such a way. I remember talking to one student just yesterday only. She was explaining what happens in her college. And it is known that every student, when a girl and a boy come to college, they're looking for relationship rather than education. That becomes a secondary. It becomes very strong in their mind. And she wrote, better than sitting on a coffee table and looking into each other's eyes and saying, you are my world, when you don't have one of your own world. If you don't have your own world and you are speaking such a superficial word, yes, certainly the need for togetherness, being with a partner, making relationship is the inherent quality of a living entity, right? At certain age. Imagine, according to educational psychology, education is connected to, what is it? It is called as apne swarth. I am coming here for my swartha. Swartha word is, kind of selfishness, but not that gross selfishness, a healthy selfishness. So when you are focusing on yourself, you do not have the bandwidth, you don't have the resources to extend yourself to somebody else, because to extend yourself to somebody else, you have to invest a lot in their life, especially, dealing with the boyfriend and girlfriend. So the need is there. The college is in such a condition, school in such a condition. There is a conflicting situation between their need to be with somebody and their need to grow in education. Discouraging environment. Even if you want to, you'll be called by so many names. Are you normal? Is there a problem? Right? Being normal in the college campus makes you abnormal. You don't drink, you're socially unfit. You don't have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, there is something wrong with you. Right? The fifth reason, picking the wrong course. How many children in their life are regretting for doing something which they never wanted to do? Because the clarity was not there, simply the influence was there. And then academic inadequacy, right? Because of the academic inadequacy, the students are large in number. The readiness is not there. So what does it do? It creates such an anxiety. So these are the 6 reasons why children drop out. Yes, dropping out is a trauma for them. And for some, dropping out is such a trauma, they want to remain in the trauma of denying the reality of not being in the educational institution. And what is the number? As I said, Large number. You can imagine if those number of people are coming out and their number is simply increasing more and more, more and more. I was talking to some student, went to America, Ivy League college, and what is the realization? The realization is, if I have the resources, before starting better education system, I will close down this education system. Right? Whether it is Gandhi, whose ideology I'm not at all favorable to, but one thing is very clear, whether it is Gandhi, whether it is Srila Prabhupada, whether it is Sri Aurobindo, or whoever it is so real. They say this education system is not good. Right? So imagine, and therefore we come back and study what was it, whether you take the Greek philosophers, let us begin from the Western Greek philosopher, then eventually come to Bhagavad Gita and Upanishad about education. Now, Plato in his Republic, he talked about what is the need in regards to developing human qualities. He spoke about wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. If you want to translate that in Sanskrit, wisdom means Vigyan, courage means Shaurya or Sahas, justice means Nyaya, and temperance means Indriya Nigraha. And further, Plato mentioned, there is a reason why he mentioned it. We will not completely agree with this, but there is a reason why he mentioned. He said wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance should be the conditioning of the child from very beginning. That should be the foundation. And to do that, he said art and poetry should be banned. Because art and poetry creates such an imagination, it takes away you from the truth. Now, how far is true? How far it is true? Yes, if you study the modern art, modern poetry, modern cinema, what is it? It is connected to Okism. The number of people who are disruptive of certain traditional values. बेशरम गाना कैसे बन सकता है अगर आप लज्जा को समझते हो तो? A shameless cannot be the title of your song, right? And the height is, there is a debate about this, whether it is right or wrong. That shows the height of stupidity. Again, I wrote about this. In our dharmic scripture, there is absolutely no problem for expression through drama and art. It has a place. But the place for art and drama designed in such a way, it was connected to real life, not the fictional life. Ramayana is kavya, but it is rishidrishta. It is a kavya, it's a poetry. That poetry does not take you away from real life. And therefore, see the number of people who basically lean towards destroying the traditional values which are beneficial to the society. It is not about we are fighting tradition and modern, which is beneficial for the society, that are basically undermined royally. Ek stree, Bharatnatyam, Kathak, whatever dances she does, which is visible, available for people to see, nobody hiding them, unlike the Islamic culture where there is no art only, right? So they were allowed to see, but that was connected to real life. The romance was there, Madhurya Ras was there, Shringar Ras was there, not only to Radha and Krishna, even to the human beings. but that was presented in such a beautiful way that would enhance people's life, not create crazy stupidity, conflict, and division of the society. And therefore, if you see, the liberal art, the modern art, is synonymous to what? It is synonymous to woke culture. Somebody mentioned that, what is the alternative for bad education? He said the alternative for bad education is not no education. What is it now? Alternative for bad education, a good alternative for good education is, good education is against bad education. Bad education is against good education. So good education, if it is not available, what is the next? Social science. And if you become part of the social science kind of work, then you'll have a trouble. Recently, I was talking to a 90-plus-year-old person, very wise, dedicated his life for medical profession, dedicated his life for being the warrior, right? Imagine Rahul Gandhi making statement about the warriors. No warriors, while fighting, even if there is a defeat is not an important principle. How does he get defeated? Uske chhati pe, there are shots on his heart, on his chest, right? Those kind of warriors. So he was mentioning about his own family. One of them is a hardcore socialist. I said, how this happened? You are such a religious person, such a dharmic person, such a cultural person. He said, laughing. He said, what can we do? JNU. The wrong kind of education has the power to change your upbringing also. And what does such education do? It makes a country into a banana state. Right? So therefore, there was some truth in what Plato said, because they can be so intoxicated without understanding the reality of an ordinary person. So therefore, when we study carefully that the education, another principle of education, when our Plato is mentioning about, what is it? Valor, sahas, shaurya. What is this shaurya? The shaurya, again, it is explained. The modern education, especially when you go to education which is basically covered with 4 walls, a private education where the schools have their own personal curriculum. To the extent, there are some educational centers within India where the children did not know the India's national anthem itself. They did not know the freedom fighters of the country. And the children were taught spirituality. They were taught spirituality, but they were not taught the people who had a spiritual values. They fought the freedom struggle. Zero understanding of such people. So what happens when you grow like basically not like a banyan tree, like a bamboo tree. I was again reading something, Carl Jung, he was the person who conceptualized the idea of individualism, right? Focusing on myself. And one of the person who was influenced by Carl Jung is Jordan Peterson, if you study him a little bit. And I was wondering, how is that this man is speaking a lot of traditional logical values? I went backwards to understand, and I studied Carl Jung, and Carl Jung did lot of study for Hindu philosophy, the Sanatan Dharma philosophy, and focused on different kinds of personalities and made this psychoanalysis test. Right. So, and part of that test, what does it do? It teaches you understanding yourself, growing in yourself, contributing in your own self because of your hard labor, then actually giving it to the society also. And for doing that, what is one of the most important principle? The most important principle for doing it, that risk-taking ability. There are two things, risk-taking and risk management. We have discussed this many times. You know, when we talk about adventure, generally people talk about the adventure of sport-centric adventure. Oh, trekking, hiking, mountain climbing, boxing, wrestling, right? Martial art. Yes, they are needed for the Kshatriyas. But it is not simply a skill-based. There are people who win gold medal in this kind of sports, but they are not part of the fighting class. They do not have the courage to fight real battles of life. Why? Because they made into a skill. They did not take it as a spirit of life. Right. Other day I was talking to somebody, you know, people get offended if you don't go for their social functions. They make you feel, oh my God, without you, how can we do it? You have to come. There is so much of pressure. And people go. In a week, people go 3 times to marriage ceremony. And you are forced to go there. Sometimes you don't want to go there. Social functions. Right? So when it is a celebration centric, people go around and make them feel I'm there for your function. But if you study carefully, you know, the society would come together most of the time in the bad times of the people rather than simply creating a social function. We do not have the courage to stand for people when they're in bad times. Forget about health issues. But when they are going through certain difficulties, challenges, court case, other things, we don't have a system where people can stand for them. Why they can't stand? Because they are made to only focus on the socializing and partying. Risk-taking has been wiped out. Right? There is a talk. The people talk about, you know, activism, feminism, female empowerment. But whether it is female empowerment or male empowerment, the male masculine energy has been very consciously stripped off from people. Today morning, I was talking to one boy about bullying. You know, we're going to discuss 2-session course on bullying. What is bullying? And he said, you know what, bullying is not completely bad. Very interesting. When bullying becomes violent, risky, dangerous, then it is okay. But removing bullying is completely from people's existence, what will happen? You will not stand. And he made a very striking point that in the Western world, the bullying is part of the school culture, which they want to take out, which they should take out if it is risky and challenging. But the bullying happens for the adults more than it happens for the children. Right? And why does the bullying happens? Many times those who are getting bulled, they don't know, actually I'm getting bulled. Right? Why? Because the valor, that sahas, खड़े होने के लिए सिखाए नहीं किसी ने. So therefore, one of the first principle of not taking bullying is when you go to a shop. When a shopkeeper tells you any exuberant price. I know a lot of children, they don't know how to bargain in the shop. They're easy target for buying things for higher price. And just because they don't know how to buy, they don't know to bargain. Now the online shopping makes you more dumb. There was a great spirit of going to the shop, going to the market, seeing the things, bargaining there. ये बहुत बड़ा साहस होता था. And therefore, what is real sahas? The real sahas, risk taking, instead of risk management, was done by a large number of our Indian business people. They went across anywhere and everywhere. They went across anywhere and everywhere, knowing very well, I have nothing to lose because I have nothing. When we were discussing, the higher upper class, the wealthy people like Elon Musk could take a risk of buying the Twitter, giving $44 billion. Even if he make complete loss, it is not going to destroy him. He's only proved, wow, this man is courageous. Because what else can happen to him? He will lose large chunk of his money. No problem. And the second person who is willing to take risk is the poor person who has nothing at his disposal. वो बोलेगा क्या जाएगा मेरे हाथ से? What can go? What can I lose? And therefore, in the Mahabharata, Krishna told this to Arjun. When Duryodhana was hiding in the waters, not willing to come out because he was a little tired, he knew that he had to have a face-to-face combat with Bhima. And when he was about to come out, or after he came out, there was a discussion between Arjuna and Krishna. And Krishna explained very interesting point. He said, Arjun, never run behind a lost soldier. When he has lost everything, don't run behind him, because if he turns around, now when he comes to attack you, he has nothing to lose. He'll be fierce in the battle. Right? He'll be so fierce in the battle that facing him, you have all the risk of losing everything. Therefore, the poorest of the poor and the richest of the rich, they are willing to take the risk. The lower middle class and middle class family, they always work on the principle of managing. Their life is very, very normal. There is no excitement. There is no fun. Nowadays, if you become famous in social media, you can make some money, but that is not driven by adventure. All these Birlas, Tatas, and so many such people, how did they rise to the level what they rose? Because they took the courage to come out. They had risk-taking capability. I remember reading something. The Brazilian footballer, after the Brazil lost in their match against Croatia, I think, right? One of their player did not score a goal during the penalty shootout. Their star player, Neymar, he said that only those who hit, only those who kick the ball, only they can miss it. Don't worry, my friend. Said, don't take to your heart. And very interesting, risk takers are always playful in their life. Like there is a famous, he was a philosopher, Alan Watt. He mentioned in one of his talk, very interesting point. He said, in 1970s, when Brazil won the World Cup, some of the newspaper wrote that they're going up to the highest position of winning the World Cup has happened through the process of dance and drama, especially dance. They went through the whole matches and won the World Cup because they are a dance troupe. He was mentioning life is a flow and it is a flow of play. If you do not take it as a play, you will not take the risk of willing to lose. There is a chances of losing everything, but only those who are willing to lose, only they can take greater risk. And now what is happening? Even those business class of people, their children want to go back and live a very healthy and very stable, peaceful life. So therefore, in America's last election, There was some analysis. Why did Donald Trump won the election? Because there were a lot of accusation against him in one aspect. What is that? He's a failed businessman. He made so much loss. He lost this much of money. So one analyst, he said, because he used for his advantage, he said, if I'm willing to lose my own money to do something good for me, you can imagine how much I can take risk for the growth of Americans. America first. So the American realized that our politicians are not willing to take the risk. And this man is willing to take a risk, so we will vote for him. Otherwise, he's not supposed to win only. Right? Because he had a skin in the game. There is a famous writer, he explains this concept. Right? What is happening? Our children don't climb the trees. Our children don't take the risk of anything. That uncertainty was part of life. But now they cannot handle uncertainty. And when you don't handle uncertainty, when you live a very safe life, so-called safe life, the world basically kicks you off. Therefore, somebody mentioned the modern education system are the first story in regards to keeping people away from reality. Adhunik Vidya Shala, the modern education, they keep you away from the realities of life. And therefore you talk to the children, they're activists on the social media. All these so-called feministic people, men or women, what do? They have this, such an idea about how the patriarchal society is dangerous, it is atrocious. They want to, destroy the capitalism or money-making ventures. We are also anti-capitalist in one sense, but we are dharmic capitalist. We cannot be socialist because socialism is what? Socialism doesn't empower people. Socialism is all about distribution. Right? Where is the production? Right? So dharmic capitalism gives rise to creativity wherein you're willing to take the risk so that you can produce things which is beneficial for the society and oneself also. If that doesn't happen, then those who live on the principle of risk management, they cease to exist eventually. Right? So how do you take the risk? From taking risk, we have gone to risk management. How do I come back from risk management to risk taking? Otherwise, if you see all these socialistic people, they talk about socialism, most of them, they directly attack the process of marriage, not the spending on the marriage. Please observe. They'll stop all the rituals. They'll say this is all bogus. We don't believe in this. Right? They take away all the substance of marriage ceremony, but they want their marriage to be held in the destination marriage. They want it to happen in the outside world. They want to go somewhere else. It is more than 5 days festival. Right? So it is an organized dance rather than the Brazilian football who played life like a dance. And it's very interesting. So this philosopher said, you see, he's an European. He said that see the difference between how the European play and how the South Americans play. South Americans are more like originally like Indians, like Indian hockey team. If you see, it was like a skill center. It was more a art centric. Then eventually what happened? The Western European world made that game into like a machine. It was operating so systematically. Winning became the goal rather than playing becoming a goal. The celebration was based upon result rather than enjoying the play. And if you do like that, if you play with this kind of mindset, it is not that you will produce less result. Brazil has won the World Cup 5 times. right? So therefore, what we have done, the play, the art, music, everything is made into a machine. Why it is made into a machine? Very interesting. Again, you have to go back. According to the Hebrew, the Old Testament and New Testament, which Western world adopted, this entire creation is like a machine. And there is a person who operates this machine. There is a person who makes a machine. प्रकृति को उन्होंने मशीन का उपमा दे दिया. Everything organizing, they will describe about how the food is coming from one part to the another part. It's all a biological machine. And this philosopher mentioning, interestingly, it makes a lot of sense when you believe Jesus was the son of a carpenter. Think about it, he said. Right? So therefore, if you see the Europe, hockey became more of a machine-centric. Football became like that only. More power, more energy, more systems, right? But if you study carefully the Indian system, the Sanatan Dharma system, again, this man is explaining the concept of Vishnu, Leela and Maya. If you take the Advaitian concept of philosophy, ये Maya है, or if you take the Vaishnava philosophy, Vishnu Leela hai, let us not fight about the philosophical reality. What was the purpose to say this? The purpose was, don't take things so seriously, enjoy the journey. And if you enjoy the journey, for you to take the risk become very natural. The schools were taught like that. The parents allowed their children, right? How? Send them a teacher's house who was well established with his family. He was a man, he had a wife, he had a children. So he knew life as it is. At the same time, he had a philosophy. And the children stayed there. And what is the first thing you do in regards to when you came to a teacher's school? You live on begging. You are not pampered in regards to food habits. Right? So that adventure, that was the beginning of experiencing duality of life. And when they would come out, the life was either you believe in Vishnu Leela or you believe in Maya. They knew the art of living in the presence, growing in the presence, contributing in the presence, and the consequences of that, your future was also built very nicely. Khelte raho. And therefore, what does Krishna say in the Gita? And which we see, unfortunately, this is so much missing in the education system. Right? Other day I was talking to one devotee. You know, he has 2 children whom he has educated differently, taking a lot of risk, going against the surrounding where there was, hey, what are you doing? Why are you spending so much of time just giving them education? That will compromise with you, your spirituality. Focus on, let them go to whatever school. You know, it's okay. Send them to, spiritual schools, devotee schools. Doesn't matter, right? It is easier, as I said, it's easier to build temples. Construction is one of the most insignificant thing you can manage. No big deal. You can make up buildings after building, buildings after building, buildings after building, and it gives you a false kind of achievement. Right? But if you study education in the Indian system, there were less structure, because most of your time was spent on building people. Vidura in Vidurniti explains, he says, yoga gives you peace. Guru gives you knowledge. Third, tapasya gives you power. And santap, what is santap? Santap means anxiety. What does it give? It gives you loss in every aspect of your life. Huh? Imagine, therefore, if you had a right kind of teacher, you will be illuminated by knowledge. And if you're doing a right kind of, now word tapasya is not fasting, right? Tapasya is not starving. Tapasya is not sleeping less. A tapasya in this context, what Vidura is saying, doing something repeatedly again and again, again and again, again and again. Just like a student who's studying Sangeet, classical Sangeet, you know how much time he or she spends in learning certain ragas. I'd gone to one of this alternative school. I met some of the students after 3 to 4 years. When they started singing, their throat would not open up also. There was no prana only. And this time when I saw, wow, there is so much of transformation in regards to their singing. And that did not stop. You know, the skill has the power in such a way that there is a courage. That girl who would never speak, she is able to communicate properly, express in a very articulate way. Right? So therefore, what does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita in regards to growth, in regards to education, in regards to developing ourselves? Twice in the Bhagavad Gita it says, Sreyan Swadharma Viguno Paro Dharma Bhayabaha. Right? That, oh my dear Arjuna, knowing your passion, understanding your passion, and acting accordingly, while doing that, even though now this is the word of Krishna, right? Some of us are, practicing spiritual people. I recently heard a talk given by Annamalai. Somebody asked him, Annamalai, if you know, that means you are sensitive to your surrounding. Annamalai is a politician. He was an IPS officer, Karnataka cadre, 38-year-old man, very modest, very humble. The way he articulates things are so good. Somebody asked him this question. If somebody has that video, they can post in the group. Somebody asked that question to him, Annamalai, what after 20 years you will become the Prime Minister of India? He has all the potential. But his answer should be heard. What an answer he gave. That is the purport for the verse Krishna Sharanagati, Sarva Dharman Parityajya. He said, sister, I live day to day. I live on a day-to-day basis, seeing what is my situation. I operate on day-to-day basis. I operate for Dharma. Where Dharma takes me, I don't care. I just surrender to the movement. And if you study carefully after Krishna spoke that verse to Arjuna, Krishna did not reveal Arjuna about the departure of Abhimanyu. Till Arjuna came to the camp and saw the death of his son. So if you study, read that, hear to that talk. A brilliant, one of the best talk I ever heard in regards to life and how to live. He was an IPS officer. He never wanted to be a politician. He wanted to start work on a ground level with the people. Very spiritual. And the situation brought him. He just flew along with that, being a reluctant leader. And he quoted Shivaji Maharaj, very interestingly. He said, Shivaji Maharaj wanted to give up everything. And he said, I got to know about Shivaji Maharaj. He's saying, being a Tamil Nadu, he said, I read about him when I was 35-year-old. Imagine I was not taught about this great personality. And what is the greatness? Day to day, on a daily basis. And because he lived the life on a daily basis, and there is a book written in the Western world, as somebody has posted, which is called as Mindset. In this book, Mindset, the author proves that if you are obsessed with the result, you will never reach there. But if you are focusing on journey, there is a greater chances that you will reach there. Journey is always greater than the destination itself. It's a proven fact. And therefore our Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita twice he mentions to Arjuna, it is better to perform one's own duty than to doing somebody else's. Right? So how do I do that? In the modern context, yes, certainly one does not need to jump off from what they are doing, because going towards artificiality has become our naturality. Right? That has become natural to us. Right? So from that artificiality which has become natural to us, to come to the real natural which is artificial now, it's again a journey. Huh? That is again a journey. So how do we do that? Basically, when you realize, okay, I'm made for this, but I'm doing something else. Collect your resources to do what you're supposed to do. Like if you're working as an engineer, but you realize I'm an artist. All right, continue to work as an engineer and slowly spend some of your time for doing those kind of activities. And eventually, when you stick to doing that sadhana repeatedly again and again, there is a greater chances of experiencing that contentment and happiness, right? But if that doesn't happen, at least you will have a satisfaction of trying something tangible, rather than being successful in an artificial world and feeling empty at the end of the day. Therefore, whether it is Krishna, whether it is some ordinary politician who believes in this principle, I live a day-to-day life. And therefore, in the Gurukul kind of education, again, we are not talking about closing all the education system. Focus, let them go to the school, whichever school they are going now. Let them go to whichever college they are going. But do not impose this idea, this is your destination, because that is not their destination. If you add something tangible, like what Plato said, what is it? Wisdom, valor, temperance, and the fourth one, he said about justice, nyaya. And this nyaya is one of the greatest contribution of our Vedic philosopher. Some of you must have heard about there is a huge battle is happening from the Cambridge scholar and the traditional scholars about Panini's Ashtadhyayi on certain sutras. Right? No language has the power in the world to create such an interest in regards to its functional reality, and then bringing it to the computer technology. Such an amazing debate is happening, right? You'll be marveled, you'll be shocked, you'll be stunned. Even if you don't understand Sanskrit, if you study that, you will realize, how, there is different levels of battles are happening, but a very interesting battle, right? Instead of that, there are people saying why India does not take part in the FIFA World Cup. And then there is so much of guilt. Hum log gold nahi jeete, ye nahi karte, wo nahi karte. As I said, it does not suit. That is their narratives. Their narratives should not be basing and judging myself. Imagine in India, there was a tree climbing competition, one of the 64 arts. Again, Krishna learned this. We talk about Krishna consciousness. Krishna learned the art of tree climbing. Keep the competition of tree climbing. What will happen? That will benefit all the coconut tree gardeners, all the betel nuts gardeners, all the mango tree gardeners. Why? Because they are not finding laborers for doing all these things. So the sports was designed in such a way, it was connected to life, and life was designed in such a way, it was connected to Vishnu Leela. And that was the education system, what our people operated since time and immemorial. So therefore, if we operate on that principle, consciously and putting efforts, taking that risk, okay, even if they don't get that grade, what is expected of them, but mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, socially, if they become strong people, then there is a greater chances that they will contribute to their own growth and to growth of other people. Otherwise, what is it? The number. See the number. It is not from the Bhagavatam. It is from the modern statistics only. How many children drop out? How many people go through mental anxiety? How many people commit suicide? But sometime one may feel it will not happen to my child. Then that same story of Yudhishthira Maharaj was asked by his father in the form of Yaksha, what is the greatest surprise in this world? He said, everybody is dying, but those who are living, they feel that it will not happen to me. This is connected to our modern education system. Everybody talks about it as ill effect, but hardly any number of people are willing to add little bit, not even changing 100% against 100%, adding little bit, some emotional stuff, some intellectual stuff, some Sanskrit language, then you will see when you do that percentage wise, according to how much one's conditioning is, then there is a greater chance that the truth will prevail, dharma will prevail, and the spirituality will prevail. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Well put. We should enjoy the journey. It should be dance and play. Prabhuji, what we are observing is that the dance and play is reducing in our day-to-day living, as we seem to be more result-oriented, and celebration typically happens when we achieve a particular result. So the question is that, if we don't get the result, are we satisfied? Are we comfortable with that situation? How do we achieve that state where we don't get the results? Still, we are content and happy, and we continue on the journey.
Statistically, it is proven, if there are 100,000 people appearing for 20 seats or 1,000 seats, so that much number will not achieve only. Very simple, right? Let us begin with that first, rather than saying, I could be one of them, you could be 9 of them. Rather than 1% getting 9%, don't get it. So therefore, again, studying my own self, how much am I capable to handle this? And even if I'm capable to handle this, knowing very well the chances of me getting into this kind of education is 1%. So are we not supposed to prepare them for something alternative also? So what do? We basically become a gambler, like buying a lottery ticket, knowing very well 90% will not get, but let me try. And when you try hard, putting all your efforts, where basically from 5 in the morning till 10 in the night, when you put all that efforts, and when you don't get it, it is but natural that you'll be dissatisfied. You'll be hurt, you'll be angry, you'll be upset. And if you are a little spiritualist, you'll question God also, why he did not help me in getting what I'm supposed to get. Right? So that is a reality. That's an absolute reality. You can't change that. And therefore, again, we see nowadays, people celebrate, the parents, again, may not be consciously, but unconsciously, they are responsible for celebrating their children's. If somebody becomes, it's your birthday, people spend so much of money. Where do they take them to the places where they experience dualities of life? Boosting the ego of the child. Very interesting. Again, very interesting if you study. In the Niti Shastra, it is explained, especially the boys should never be flattered by their father, never be flattered by their teacher, and never be flattered by their master. I was quite intrigued by this statement. I said, why like that? Why it was like that? Because if the child, especially the boys, beyond their age, again, Chanakya Pandit talks about, till the age of 5, completely blind pampering has to be done. Then there is a discipline, right? So what is that discipline? That discipline entails teaching them how the world functions. The world only allows the toughest people to survive. The world only allows the brave to survive. If you are not brave and you continue to remain rabbit, so the rabbit will be the flesh in somebody else's plate, or a curious, cute looking animal in somebody else's cage. Right? You will allow yourself to be trampled. So therefore, it becomes a pertinent principle that a male member of the family has to take the role of giving toughness to their child. Another interesting, I was reading something where both father and mother give motherly love to their child. There is nobody giving fatherly toughness to the child. Both are caring. You would never see father bringing glass full of water to their son. Right? Then what will happen? That you will experience feminine energy everywhere. Just kindness, just sweetness, just appreciation, just affection. But world does not give you that. World beats you like a boxing ring. Like, therefore, what did Krishna say? Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yuddhacha. Tasmat sarveshu is not only for smaran, tasmat sarveshu is for sangarsh also. The sangarsh is real all the time. So therefore, it is very important to understand where people are made tough and kind. Therefore, Shakti and Shaktiman, feminine energy and masculine energy, when it is harmonized, you experience a complete human being, a complete man, a complete woman. A complete woman cannot be a complete woman without that masculine energy, and complete man cannot be a complete man without the feminine energy. But what is happening? Everybody is going towards feminine energy, but their unevolved mindset is all about what? My rights. Nobody gives you right. You have to actually get that right by battle of life. And who's saying this? I'm not saying it. The psychology says it. Krishna says it in the Mahabharata. Then and therefore Krishna says, very interesting in the Bhagavad Gita, he said, I am the ability in the man. So Lord is connecting himself to the people's ability. If you find somebody able person, you can't say so arrogant. No, that ability is a symbol, it's a synonymous to personality of Godhead only. So that's an important, yeah.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. In fact, even Plato said that we need to make children more courageous in life.
Yes.
Thank you. We have a few questions. How do we make children less dependent emotionally on others? Maybe you answered part of that question in the previous question.
And therefore, the father represents conscious, disciplined indifference towards the children, not neglect. Please hear my word, not neglect. Conscious, disciplined indifference towards children, especially to the boys, so that they have a respect for the fatherhood, but at the same time not dependence. Healthy non-dependence of the child towards the male energy makes them better human being. Right? They realize, okay, I need to care for myself and I need to care for my family also. Right? I need to do anything for my family. So therefore, the girls generally are raised differently, boys are raised differently. That does not mean that if you read in the Vedas, even the girls were given the education of martial art. How much? Not to make them like fully male looking. They maintain their feminine, you know, that fine features of a woman, of a girl. At the same time, the emotional courage. And therefore, what does Chanakya say? One time we just have to take that verse of Chanakya, very important verse. He says that women are more courageous than men. And what is that courage? Not that they go to hunt, not that they go to the battlefield, not that they're supposed to go and beat the criminals. Their abilities, they can do it if there is a need, but their abilities, when there are challenges in the family, challenges in the community, challenges in the kutumba, so they are the one who have the greater courage to handle and give stability to the family. No?
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
So there are a few questions related to risk. So question is about when do we take risk? What is the right age to take risk? What happens if there's a loss? How do we manage that? When we have dependents, the risk-taking abilities reduce. So Prabhuji can
One of the reason people don't take risk nowadays because they have only one child. No, it's too much risk to risk that child. Like when you have 5 children, it's not that the parents don't leave 5 children, they love. But they are forced to put the children in a condition where they have to prove that I need to grow. Right? They don't make such a hue and cry about like getting grades little less here and there. They are not frantic. They are not obsessed with making child into a machine. Right? So that is an important principle. If you see, like, this France team, they lost the football match. Their hero, right, that African guy, very powerful. But you see, he was little despondent. Now, sports cannot give rise to despondency. It's a play. If you're not developing that psychology, yes, while playing, when you're about to lose, you are going through all kind of adrenal movements, here and there. But when the match is over, if you cannot smile, then how will you be smiley when you are living a real life? That was the purpose of sports. Now what has become sport has become very serious business where the president of a country comes to watch a match. He can play, he should play, but living everything and coming. So imagine, so therefore there are many things which are responsible. So we have to understand, okay, only one child is there. So how will I put them to risk? There is one Kannadiga comedian, stand-up comedian, very Brahminical. He said, in these big cities, the children are sent to, martial art. They're sent to swimming. They're sent to, the sprint running race. And the mother will tell consciously, unconsciously, beta, don't run very fast, you get hurt. He's running for sprint. He has to run fast only. He has to jump. He has to take a diving in the water. And if you're a boxer, there is all chances that you get broken your limbs. So therefore, it is an important principle that we have to see the whole picture and realize, okay, this is my real picture. Now, at this stage, I'm stuck with a typical, the English medium convent school, which is oak in its nature, which is anti-Sanatan Dharma many times. Then how do you do? Then you are basically in your family, in your house, very strong, assertive culture as to present it to the child. Otherwise, it is only a question of time where your very child will question your identity as a father, your identity as a mother, your identity as whatever community you belong to. No, they will question that itself. Once they question your roots itself, then they have nothing in their life to prove to the world other than trying to celebrate. In Kerala, a huge, conflict happened because somebody was supporting Argentina, somebody was supporting for France. Right? Just imagine how unnecessarily you become emotionally driven for something which is not real, and while something is real, you are not emotionally driven at all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah. Prabhuji, there is a question by a teenager who says that she's quite inspired by our history and our culture, but the surroundings are quite different. So how does she manage living in this kind of environment?
Listen to Sai Deepak, listen to Annamale, listen to Vikram Sampath, listen to Anand Ranganathan, right? Listen to this kind of people, how they are able to turn around the situation for their advantage. Because they will not change, they want to change you. So how systematically, how strategically, how logically. Therefore, if you remember, even Prabhupada told in Gurukul in the beginning, children should learn the Panchatantra, the Niti Shastra. Right? Why like that? Because Niti, what did he say? How did I come to the Western world and give this knowledge? He asked some people. He said, am I straight or am I kind of diplomat or little crooked? Not crooked. He said, and all the devotees said, oh, Prabhupada, you are humble, you are simple, you are honest. He said, hey, come on. He said, if I was all these things, I could have never changed you guys. I was shrewd. I was smart. Right? So this is what, he told. So similarly, if you want to be part of this world and do something, you cannot, calmness, humility and humbleness has to be a tool. That should not be our personality. Our personality is a personality of assertiveness. Where to be assertive, where not to be assertive, and therefore all this Shivaji Maharaj history, all these things, we'll get to know, oh my God, he was willing to compromise, but that was not the goal. Krishna told the Pandavas, lie down, pura so jao. 100% everybody was lying down. Did the Pandavas surrender? No, they did not surrender. That was a tool. And Bhima was not willing to listen, that he was about to lose his life. So therefore, all different qualities which are very beautifully taught in Niti Shastra and Panchatantra. Right? And when we make that effort, then there is a greater chances not only we'll survive, we will grow, and eventually we will also thrive. That's an important principle.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. So wonderful to see examples from sports, business, art, politics, and how you connected to
and all this
scriptures.
Is in Mahabharata. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. We will meet you again next Tuesday as we continue our conversation with you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you.